On. Welcome back to the Self-Esteem and Confidence Mindset podcast with me, Johnny Pardo. Today, I welcome Patricia onto the show, where we're going to be talking about self-confidence, overcoming limiting beliefs, and much, much more around mindset and all sorts. So a quick introduction to Patricia, and then we'll dive into the conversation. So Patricia Bartell is a TEDx speaker, world champion musician, and an inspirational force in the world of business coaching. From the challenging beginnings of a third world orphan and polio survivor to becoming a successful businesswoman and keynote speaker, Patricia's journey is a testament to resilience and passion. As we await the release of her powerful memoir, From Crutches to Crushing It, on November 1st, Patricia shares her transformational story that proves we can all find our way from pain to power. So, Patricia, it's a pleasure to have you on here. Now we know each other from obviously the Neuroencoding Institute, the Tony Robbins World, and many, many other places. And I'm always inspired by the amount of things you're doing and always what I'm seeing in terms of your content. So yeah, like obviously we've just mentioned there's a fair few things you're doing, speaking, writing books, and then obviously gone through a few challenges yourself. What inspires you and drives you to do so many things?
First of all, Johnny, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. This is a great honor and great to see you. I know we've known each other in the different circles. So what's inspired me is a few things. Number one, I'm a highly driven person. But I also have a high work ethics. And I think that's, when we think about what's made us today is usually what we had to go through in the challenges of our earlier years. And so, I was born in Bolivia, adopted, and went through 13 years of abuse. And through that, though, one of the things that was deeply planted was working hard. And so I think that working hard with a high level of excellence was a key point for me today, because I drive my business, whatever I do, with high excellence and lots of work. And I'm also just slightly competitive, but just for myself, right? So because I have a huge music background as a professional musician. And so I was very competitive and always to see, could I get to that next level and what would it take?
Wow. No, it's and thank you for sharing your story as well. And obviously that hard work ethic and that what you're doing. I mean, for you, do you feel like your hard work ethic is like in every area of your life? Do you feel like it's something you feel you've got to show up in every area of your life? Or is it mainly in business or multiple?
It's a really good question. What I found was that I had to change why I worked so hard. So early on, it was I had developed something that served me then, but doesn't serve me now, which is why it was changed. And that was I worked really, really hard to be accepted. And so it became like a performance-oriented thing. It's like if I work hard, people will like me. Until I worked really, really hard and some people didn't like me. And that kind of just broke that rule. And so as I begin to reevaluate things in my life and why I do things, and I realized number one, no one will stand up for you unless you stand up for yourself. No one will really accept you until you accept who you are. And so as I begin to do a lot of self-reflection and a lot of personal growth, that was one area I realized I want to work hard because that's just who I am. I give my best in everything. I do everything with my whole heart. And now it's fueled by a different passion, whereas before it was to be accepted. And now it's just, that's who I am.
Just who you are. No, so it sounds like some of your beliefs have kind of like shifted a little bit in terms of I need to be accepted to now it's just like I accept myself. This is who I am. Were there sort of any ways you began to start shifting these beliefs in yourself?
Yes. So I actually got into the personal development world, not on purpose at all. I went to rescue my business because I nearly lost my business. I have a music academy And back then it was just a small little music studio, but it was being driven into the ground. And so out of desperation to fix that, I realized I had no business skills. I was a professional musician, a music teacher, but we spent our years just perfecting our skill. And so through college and all of that. And so, but in college, we didn't get accounting class, we didn't get business classes, we didn't get marketing classes, even though those were such important traits for a musician. So now here I am about to lose my business. And it's a long story, but the first major business event I went to was Business Mastery with Tony Robbins. And we know that Tony Robbins teaches 80% psychology, 20% mechanics. And I had no idea that I was the bottleneck in my business. So as I'm sitting there listening, the different interventions that he's doing, realizing, oh my goodness, that's my story too. Or that's how I think. And I had no idea at that point that how we think is how we feel, and how we feel is what we do, right? And that becomes our identity. And so I began to be very aware of how I was thinking. Now, what's very interesting though, is when I was growing up, we weren't allowed to ask questions, have opinions, or think for ourselves. We were told what to do. So it's very controlled, if you will. And so when Tony Robbins would say, just if you want better answers, ask better questions, I didn't have any questions or thoughts going on in my mind. Now, yes, subconsciously, right? But up here, I was like, I don't think anything. So, but what was happening was there were the thoughts, but they were so suppressed and were subconscious that I had to actively work to bring them to the surface, because the emotions were very strong. I could feel the emotions, the hurt, the pain, the setbacks, all those limiting things, but it was just my emotions leading everything. So then as I became to be more aware and then starting to ask questions, my thought life became alive. And then I'm like, okay, now they're surfacing. Now I can see, okay, if I think that, it has this effect. And so from that was then where all those limiting beliefs would come from. And so I loved laying in bed, actually. This is kind of a funny sort of thing, is that I would just pay attention to what I was thinking. It's like, oh, okay, so where did that belief come from? And what am I going to do with it? So I made it a game, because I thought, okay, if this is what's holding me back, again, me, the competitive person, I'm like, I'm going to figure out how to eliminate it and install new beliefs. So I think that's where it all began, is just being really super aware of what's going on up here.
So did you almost, it's really interesting going like business mastering and finding Tony's 80% versus 20%. As I'm sort of aware from his world as well. But yeah, so was it almost like you, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were looking at like some of your results sometimes and seeing like what was happening in your life and actually almost coming back to your beliefs a little bit? Or was it more just a case of examining your beliefs?
At that point, it was just really examining my beliefs.
Okay.
But then what happened was actually really interesting, is that as I began to be aware of the beliefs, then I saw the things in my life start to change. Because once you change your beliefs, you begin to feel differently. And when these two are starting to link up and agree, it's like everything around you starts to change. And so, and because I didn't realize how much I loved psychology, and I just wanted to figure me out. Because I was adopted, contracted polio as a baby, and I use crutches, and I'm quite petite, I always believed there was something wrong with me, that, something inherently wrong with me, that people didn't like me, or they judged me, or all of a sudden I'd get that look or the stare. And I always translated that as rejection. And so I had to walk through this path of self-discovery, because I thought there was something wrong with me. So I was broken or need fixed. I continued into the self-development world, because I'm like, okay, I've got to fix me. I want to have a happy life, want to be accepted. But obviously there's something wrong, because I use crutches. And so that became actually a gift in itself, because it became the fuel that kept me driving deeper and deeper into personal development. And so, but deeper I went into self-development, the more I realized there's nothing wrong with me. It's just how I was thinking, and then it's like, okay, well, that's what's actually causing everything, and realizing there's a gift in everything. And so it was just completely changing how I thought, which then gave me a completely different environment around me. So I think, did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, just becoming more and more aware of them. I mean, one thing I was really interested to know is, obviously, it sounds like as we all do as human beings, but it sounds like, from your story, why some of these limited beliefs were coming in. And actually, when you start thinking about them in a different way and understanding they were there, that's when the transformation came. Was there a little bit of processing some of the emotions with that you had to do, and work through some of maybe these challenges that came alongside the beliefs? Because I know a lot of us, and I've been talking to quite a few guests recently, just unconsciously go through life not realizing all this stuff's stored away.
Yes, actually, it wasn't too long ago. I had a very interesting experience happen around this. And that was here I am, my businesses are going well, but I need to get really active on social media. So now in the line of work I do, I help people in various aspects of the business, and one of them is social media. So I know what to do, right? So I've got everything ready, my team is ready, and it's like I've got the pedal to the metal, as well as the brakes are fully on. I'm thinking, what is holding me back? Because it's like I'm raring to go. And it's like, okay, I don't know what the block is here. Nothing going on up here. I don't, it's like, okay. So it was really funny. I had a coach, and his name is Jeff, and we call him Coach Jeff. And we had a call, and I said, Jeff, just want you to know, I'm laying on my bed with the computer next to me, hearing your voice. And I'm that person, when you go to the psychology and you see those cartoons where the person is just laying there laying there and getting asked all the questions. I was that person. I said I was so tired, but I'm like fighting this inside. And he asked me a very interesting question. And he said, Patricia, where in your body is this emotion? I was like, oh. So I was thinking about it because I could feel the emotion. I wasn't that I identified what it was yet, but I knew what it was. And I'm like, I know exactly where the emotion is in my body. It's, just right in my heart center. And then he said, when it's there, what is it now attached to? Now that you've identified that, before I didn't, I just, like you say, we go through things so subconsciously, right? And so now I'm like, okay, I know the emotion is there. And so now, and all of a sudden I saw the picture of what was going on. And so it was just a very interesting experience to realize sometimes our emotions, we feel like they just drive us, right? But it's almost like now it's the engine check light. To me now, when something erupts, especially because I'm more a feely person, I guess, is that it's like, okay, it's just letting me know something's slightly off. And I just need to go examine it and find out, is it true and what's it linked to, so I can do something about it. And what it was for me in the social media, I was afraid to make a mistake. And because growing up, when I was getting ready to get in the public's eye, I was always told, you're just trying to do it to get attention. And, it's all of this attention getting, and that was considered a bad thing. So subconsciously, I got the brakes on because of this old voice. But yet at the same time, to be a good marketer in business, you have to get attention. The loudest one wins, So here I am with this brakes going on and realizing there was a deeper seated emotion. That was the fear of making mistakes. So anytime as I was growing up, I made a mistake, I was punished for it. And so now it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. It's like that unknown. And for me, it was just that fear of making a mistake, that I would be punished somehow. And this is over social media, right? So it made me realize how powerful those beliefs are, and that are connected to our emotions. So it just became interesting to figure out, oh, so this is linked to that. And again, there wasn't anything wrong with me. I would just had these old beliefs that were driving me and my emotions driving me. But once I realized it's always rooted in the fear of making a mistake. And once it was exposed, I'm like, okay, now I know what it is. It was like it's gone. It was really interesting.
So once you had the true realization of what it was, that's kind of what allowed you to move through something.
Right. Yeah. And that's such a beautiful thing because how quickly things can change.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have to be like this long drawn out. Now I've got to go through this. I've got to go through that. Once you know the truth about something you believed, like one time I was at UPW with Tony Robbins. And like I told you, I had done a lot about checking out my thoughts and challenging every thoughts. And of course, he did an exercise like, okay, write down the 3, limiting beliefs you're
just
dealing
before
with.
Dickens' process, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So now I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I've done this so much now. It's like, I don't know, do I have any more thoughts? I'm trying to think of anything that I had recently, right? So then I was like, okay, well, I did have that thought. It wasn't big, but I wrote it down. So it's 3 of them. And then me being the overachiever, I'm like, I'm going to do 4. It's only 3 lines, but I'm going to make a 4th one. And Johnny, kid you not, I put the pen to the paper and I just began to write. Now, what I wrote did not go through here at all. And once I began to write, I was reading what I was writing. And inside, it was like this volcano that just came up. And I realized I hit something really, really big. And what I wrote on there was, I'm not good enough to be loved. And I realized that was been one of the biggest limiting beliefs I've carried through my whole life. Because being adopted, so my biological family, as a child, you think, okay, I must not be good enough to be loved because they don't want me. Go to the orphanage. Look, there was a lot of not so good things that happened there. Then I come to the adopted family and I'm rejected again by the adopted mother. And so all of it's like, I'm not good enough to be loved. And then the crutches, people asking, what's wrong with you? It's like, oh, okay, people don't accept you. So I had this underlying, really, really strong one. And it came from just trying to go 1 extra mile and just to see how that came to the surface. So yeah, it's been interesting to see how all these things could come up.
It's come up. Wow. With like yourself and like obviously we were talking a little bit about it and consistency and things like that. It's very hard for people to be consistent in this day and age. And I know you're constantly working on your business and achievement. For the individual who finds consistency hard to do, have you got any guidance on where they might start with that?
Yeah, so consistency, I learned this really powerfully through during the years of my music and performing as a musician, preparing for concerts. And what I found was, and what I taught my music students at the time, is that yes, we need that repetition, right? And I think the saying is repetition is the mother of all skills.
Yeah.
And I say, and consistency is the father of it. So because you can have repetition, but if you don't have that consistency, then the repetitions that you do could be, let's say if you're going to work to the gym, classic example, it could be a week apart. But if it's the daily thing, then you see progress. And so when it came to consistency for my students, I would tell them, I don't care if you just practice for 5 minutes. Just the fact that you do something the next day to keep the win, I promise you that you will start seeing progress. And progress equals happiness. And so once that is associated with a positive feeling, we all will continue doing what feels good to us. But in the beginning, it just requires that little bit of discipline, saying just break through just those first few times, and you're going to see the progress. And once you begin to see the progress, then it makes it so much easier to continue being consistent. Doesn't matter whether you're practicing a piece, you're all of a sudden like, hey, this song is taking place. And then you get more excited, and students would get excited. Like, then all of a sudden, it wasn't just 5 minutes practicing. They would up it more and more because they saw the progress. Same with whether it's weight loss or whatever we do, business. It's like, okay, I put the reps in, I put the consistency, continue to showing up, even though I don't see anything. It's kind of like that blind faith. And then all of a sudden things start coming together, just like like a seed that's all of a sudden you see the little green pop up out of the ground. You're like, oh, it's happening. And then a little bit more. And because now you see that growth, it's an automatic thing. You get excited and you continue to do it. And that has really, really helped just to continue and really get that daily habit in of consistency.
I love it. I know there's one of my favorite books, Atomic Habits, James Clear, and he was talking about getting his client to just turn up to the gym literally for 5 minutes, and building that consistent habit that developed into a more of a workout type one. So I love that one. Patricia, I know you're obviously we talked about beliefs and that the importance of that and what you've done. I know you're involved in many and we talk masterminds, groups, communities to kind of support you as well. I just wanted to touch on this because it's something that I really value as well. Just like how much of an impact, two parts, investing into yourself has made on your life and your self-confidence, and also being part of the right community and the right people in your life.
Yeah, so I've been in a lot of different groups. I've had a lot of different coaches, different mentors, and I can tell you that number one, having the right mentor makes all the difference. And for me, I've had a couple mentors that saw giftings in me that I never saw. And so when you're just beginning in like, say something, whether it's business, in my case, it was music, business, all of this, is that having somebody who's been there, done that, right? But even beyond that, can see, here's where your forte is. Here is your superpower. And I was just recently told what my superpower was. I did in-depth search with my clients, my friends, like, what do you think is my superpower? Because in order to really build a successful, whether it's a business or you're passionate about, it needs to be built on your superpower, because it is so natural for you to really build it. So I did all this homework, asked a lot of people, and then I went back to my mentor. I said, this is what I found, and I think this is what my superpower is, right? Which I was close. But he said, and this is my mentor, Dan Locke, in the business world, he said, your superpower is communication and persuasion. I was like, persuasion? No, no, I don't think so, because communication, I like to speak with my friends and all that. But it's like, okay, let me think about it. And then I began, again, like the limiting beliefs, I began to observe Patricia. So I began to observe myself, how I talk to people, and realized, oh my word, I persuade all day. If I get a new idea, I've got to wear that hat as the CEO for my team and cast the vision, but I've got to close them on the idea. And that's persuasion. It's like, they need to know, why are we doing this and why I'm so strong behind it? But I've got to shift their beliefs initially about what it is and any objections they would have, same like we do with any clients. It's like, let's get all those limiting beliefs out of the way so you can make a decision that's right for you. So in having mentors, I think that's been one of the greatest gifts I've had, is that they not only could take me down the path they have, but they could recognize my giftings and how to guide me based on me, not just like a cookie cutter approach. Second of all, the community. I'm with a community right now that I've been with going into my 4th year. And I wouldn't trade this community for anything else in the world, because number one, they're my friends, but even more, when I crash, like in the business world, we have moments where, we're on top of the mountain, but then we also have those low moments. They have my back. Like, they will come running and say, are you okay? How can we support you? They'll get on the call. We'll coach each other, and they're, my advisors in my business. And anything you go with in life, whether it's working out, doing a business, it's easier and you can scale so much more if you're with somebody, which is why JVs are important. Just having those friends that you can talk to, you grow together, you go so much faster. Than it's so typical for people just want to do it on their own. And what happens is then you get locked into isolation. And isolation, pretty soon, you become still. And when you're still, just like a heartbeat, you begin to die. And so we're made for community. We're made for this forward movement together. And the more you can link arms with other people, the faster you'll go forward.
Love it. Thank you for sharing your experience in mentorship and them seeing the gifts and being able to give you that experience and then the community as well to support you move forward with that. So Patricia, thank you so much for sharing like your story and obviously overcoming your limiting beliefs and recognizing them and all the things you've been doing. Just before we sort of wrap up today, or is there a final point you'd like to share with us? And also, where can the listener find you if they'd like to find out a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I think the final point, if there was one thing that I'd want any of your listeners or viewers to know, and it's kind of my mission in life, because I had believed that there was something wrong with me or that I needed to be fixed somehow. And when everything is unburied and you're looking at the raw part of you, just know this: you're not broken. You don't need fixing, and there is nothing wrong with you. And it really just falls to how we define things and the meaning we give it. So for example, my crutches, I always thought, so my crutches is why people don't like me or what was wrong with me. But it was how I defined them. What meaning had I attached to them? What was the questions I was asking internally, that created this whole scenario or the whole story in my head that there was something wrong with me. So that would be probably the major point I would want to leave with your viewers or listeners, is that there's nothing wrong with them. It's just a matter of being aware of what they're thinking and the meanings they're attaching to that, of course, and then the stories around that. But it's so simple. Once you know the truth will set you free. And that's what it did for me. That's why I can continue to go on stages, continue to speak, because there's nothing wrong with me. And when you find out there's nothing wrong with you, guess what, Johnny? You become unstoppable. Awesome. And that's what has given me a massive amount of confidence, even in things I don't know how to do. But it's like I borrow from the things I've done well in and just step up the game. It's like, okay, let me take those skills, bring them into this. And what can I do? And then life is so fun to build. Life is so fun to create, because you're coming at it with this inherent natural belief that is always a part of us, and that is the strong confidence. As children, we all had confidence. It was just been buried by all the challenges and the different things we go through. But once you unbury those, the true you rises up, and you realize you're so much stronger than you ever thought. You can do things that you never thought you could, just as you start uncovering who you really are. So, and if anybody wants to follow along with me, my channel on Instagram, TikTok, all social media is Patricia Bartell Official. So, and that's where they can follow if they want to learn more about it. And so, and thank you again, Johnny, just for letting me come on and get to share, and just to, again, my biggest mission is just to let people know there's nothing wrong with them.
I love it. Thank you, Patricia. Appreciate that. And we'll link that information up as well, because sure the listener will find out more about your work and be very inspired from today. So once again, a big thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
Awesome. So that concludes our episode for today. And remember, you are in control of your own self-esteem and confidence.